Round one, ding ding, of Judgment Day. We are starting off with the best PlayStation 5 exclusives. Unkie Dunkie, tell us which is nominee one this evening, please.
That's a good question. You might need to tell me.
It is Helldivers 2.
Helldivers 2, of course, is number one. I mean, it's easily it was in the front running for my game of the year very early on this year. I think it came out February, Troy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You could even sell me on mid-Jan, but yep.
It was just I'd never play. Well, sometimes never play, but I played the first game, the top-down one, and didn't play it for much at all. But hearing that game was coming out in a third-person shooter game got me a little bit excited. I think no one expected it to blow up the way it did, and I'm so glad it did because even just playing this game solo, I was having a lot of fun, but it wasn't until you jumped in with all your mates and, you hear that, dun, 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 you're dropping in. It is that music still gives me chills now. I haven't played it for a little bit. Jumped back in a few weeks back just to sort of see if it was, what was going on. It's still just as fun to play, but it was just hard because, there was no one else to play with and there was other things to do. I just wanted to see some of the updates and some of the new Battle Pass things you've got to unlock, and there was some cool stuff in there as well. So they've continued to do that. I'd like to see a new class come into this game, or the new whatever enemy to come in. That would be nice if they drop that maybe as a surprise at Game Awards.
Well, that's been rumored all year. It sounds like it was 1 month away. One month away. I
know. So they've done well to keep the patches coming, because I know there was a bit where people fell off because they nerfed all the fun essentially out of the games by nerfing a lot of the guns and ramping up the difficulty of enemies, which I think was not fun at all. I think at the start I really liked vanilla Helldivers, the difficulty we had there, and I think they're back to that now. They've bumped back up the power of some of these weapons. They've taken away some of the the charges were just ridiculous, their spawn rate, and the way you had no way to kill them at all. So the fact they've fixed all that stuff, I'd love to get a group together and jump back in playing this, because this is some of the best fun I've had all year. Like, it's easy to put other games ahead of it now because recency bias, and it's been so long since this game came out. But the fact of the matter is, I did my PlayStation wrap today, and this was the game I played the most all year, like 116 hours or something like that. So it's to go back to those times. I just was pulled back to my PlayStation every time I had the chance. I just did not want to not play this game. And I don't know. I can't sing its praises more enough for what it did to PlayStation as an exclusive game from such a small developer.
The only icing I'll throw on that cake, mate, is they nailed Terminators for the Terminids, straight into Terminator franchise film. They nailed Starship Troopers on the other side of the galaxy. So for me, from just a in-world storytelling mechanics, I was getting the vibes off the films. Absolutely loved it. And there was, I think, about a solid 3-month period where I did nothing but play this game. I believe my clock's at 99 hours, and I think 6 trophies left between me and the platinum. But this game got its hooks in me like nothing has for years. This game was a breath of fresh air, unexpected. I absolutely loved it. Bully, you want to sing its praises, mate?
Negatory. Look, I didn't mind it. I was a little bit late to the party. I know you guys had jumped on fairly early.
A little bit late? Fucking 6 months.
Fairly early. But and maybe that might have changed my opinion on it, but jumping in a little bit late, like I think I got into it 3 or 4 months after it came out. And the biggest issue that I ever had with it was while you were playing with mates and all working together, and even occasionally when you got, put into a party with randoms, they'd sort of work together. But I found more and more that I was playing it, especially when you just get thrown in with a group of other random punters, is you'd have one in the group that was just a dick. And you would you'd go through the whole mission, you'd do everything, you'd have the drop ship coming down to pick you up at the end of the mission, take you back to the mothership. And just as the ship's about or you're about to all jump on the ship, one peanut would carpet bomb you all, and then
in my defense, that dick was Troy, but he didn't do it deliberately.
And
so
then
I still suffered the same.
You just see him just step onto the ship and turtle off, and you're sitting there going, like, what was that for?
Well,
I'll spend 45 minutes for what?
I can actually explain that, Billy. I believe it was 5, maybe 6 months after release. As Unkie said earlier, they did a massive nerfing. And then there was an online, I think it was a Steam forum that went nuts. And they decided to go into full grief mode in protest for the recent changes to in-game. So you just unfortunately pick the game up when the community was in revolt, and then after a month they reverted the changes and all the griefing stopped. So you were just unlucky in your pickup window.
Yeah, quite potentially, but I just, even you take all that aside, like I can see the fun for it, but it's just like, for me, I found it somewhat repetitive. There was only a couple of different environments that you sort of work through. It might have opened up later on. I didn't, I think I probably put 15 or 20 hours into it in total. So it might have opened up into different worlds, but for me, it was either, it was just more of the same every time you played. And I get the gameplay loop to a degree, but for me, it never got the hooks in like it did with you guys. I can understand the enjoyment. It just wasn't there for me.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. All right, then. Unkie, nominee 2 this evening for best PlayStation 5 exclusive, please.
Again, wanted to tell me what it is.
Astrobot.
Astrobot, what can we... I know Bully loved this one. I have to admit I have not platinumed it like Bully has. I have finished it, enjoyed it, and I think this is a quintessential PlayStation game because it could not be more PlayStation. You're literally putting together a PlayStation 5 for the entirety of the game. So as far as PlayStation games go, this is the most PlayStation game that came out this year, and it's a joy to play. It's cute, it's vibrant, it's the Mario Brothers game that PlayStation needs. It's the mascot game they need. They've got their new mascot in Astrobot. Not sure how it's doing sales wise. I know it's done well critically. I'm just not sure how well it's done commercially in terms of its sales, but I imagine Christmas period, this game's probably going to pick up with a lot of kids picking up PlayStation 5s and parents looking for games because this is the perfect game for them.
Absolutely is. Bully, how long did it take you to platinum? Was it 16 hours, if memory serves?
Thereabouts. I did it over a weekend. So for me, it was literally from the minute I started and put it into the console. You talk about having the hooks in. I just had so much enjoyment playing this. It is... I think I spoke about it when we spoke about what we were playing on GEA not long after it released. But for me, it was just this massive nostalgia hit. Not just the fact that you're unlocking the different bots and the throwbacks to old PlayStation IP. It's the actual gameplay itself was just that throwback to the first time you ever saw Mario in 3D in Mario 64 and that sort of style. It just had its hooks in me from the absolute get-go. It was such a thrill, such an enjoyment. As I said, I put it in on a Friday night, and every spare minute that weekend I played it and kept playing it until I platinumed it. It is absolutely, it's whimsical, it's magical, it's got the throwback to everything PlayStation. It hit at exactly the right time as PlayStation were ramping up the 30th year celebration for the brand.
It's got Nathan Drake in it.
It's got Nathan Drake in it. It's got the box tick for you, Unkie.
It does.
It's literally got, for me, in terms of a platforming experience, even it betters some of the Mario games. I think it's as good as my two favorite being Mario 64 and Mario Odyssey. That's the high praise that I see this game in. The only criticism that I've got, and it's minor only, is that it wasn't longer. I could have sat there for another 20, 30 hours and just kept going. The level design was fantastic. They mixed it up throughout the game. You get different various different powers and abilities that you can use, but they mix it up so often that none of them become sort of tedious or boring. The end of universe or end of planet areas where you take on some of the different characters. So you play as Kratos and you play as Aloy and you go through with their abilities. Nathan Drake that you play as well. Like, just mixed up the whole gameplay again as to how you go through it. It has the collectibles without being overly obnoxious to the point of needing guides and all that sort of stuff. There was just enough in each level to keep you coming back to it for another crack at it without, just putting it down and going, I can't be bothered anymore. Like, it literally hit every one of those notes to perfection, in my opinion. And would easily be the best platform of the year and probably one of the best platform games I've played in 20 years, I reckon.
And if we're giving out an award for a game with the utilization best of the DualSense controller, this would definitely win that as well.
100% it would. I absolutely love everything about this game. My only hurdle is my old man hands and that 3D platforming. I love everything about it, but I really want to second your point there, Bully, about just it is the most PlayStation thing ever. Everything in every level reminds you of something from the 30 years of PlayStation. I absolutely love it. My only question before we move on is, has anyone gone back to it post 30th anniversary, and is there anything special in there?
I believe that there's a 30th anniversary level which is releasing this week.
Oh, oh, what, like
In
the
the next-
Keatley's tomorrow?
Yes, in the next day or two.
Yeah, right.
So not only have they thrown out they did the speedrun challenge levels one a week for 5 weeks, I think, about a month after release. They're now releasing a 30th anniversary level or area in the next couple of days for free as well.
Exciting stuff. I look forward to checking it out. One that now, Unkie, I apologize, I mispast the ball previously, but this one is for you. Black Myth Wukong, nominee 3, sir. You're its biggest fan. Tell us things.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm a sucker for a Souls and action game as well. And I think this, for me, at the moment, this is sitting pretty high in my game of the year list. I've done everything in this game that I can do apart from get the platinum. I've beaten the game a couple of times. I have beaten the secret final boss as well. I've beaten the final boss multiple times, and that's coming from a guy that, struggled to beat him even just the first time. But I just found, just like any Souls game, that reward in like the muscle memory of the control and the gameplay. And like, I just think going back now on the PS5 Pro, that was my only gripe on the PS5, was that the performance, not the best. It wasn't game breaking for me, but I think a game that looks as good as it does on Unreal 5, it was always going to struggle on PlayStation 5, and it is yet to get the Pro official update, but it definitely runs much better now going back to it. But that was not enough at all to stop my enjoyment with this game. Like, it's almost a boss rush game. Like, you're going it to fight the bosses. There are stuff in between those zones, which, you might argue is the weaker part of the game. Like, unlike Souls games, you're doing probably a bit more between your boss fights. But I really enjoyed that. And as you go sort of through the game, it expands out, your Sun Wukong. It's the story of A Journey to the West, and it's all fantastical, and it's all the enemy designs are just out of this world, and the boss fights, I had so much fun learning their patterns and going to a boss fight and just being like, oh my god, how am I ever going to beat this guy? Like, I've always played these games and never really understood how people go, I love fighting this boss over and over again and kicking my teeth and learning its pattern until I finally beat it. I'm one of those ones that likes to play these Dark Souls or Bloodborne and, maybe call on some co-op help here and there to beat the boss and sort of do the other bits by myself. And then when, if I need to, call in a boss. But this is the first time I actually, had that feeling of learning a pattern and, overcoming a hard boss by myself, because it doesn't give you the option to do anything else. So that, I think, for me is what really stuck true. Is for me as a gamer, like, I really sort of fed off that and really enjoyed and found that satisfaction in beating those bosses. And I haven't probably had a better moment than when I beat that final boss for the first time. And then when I went back and did all the stuff I had to do you have to fight all these other secret bosses that you got to find out. And then once you do that, you get to finally fight this final guy. And he was insanely hard. And the fact that I managed to get through that and beat him, which then, once you beat that part of the boss, it goes on to one of those epic moments in the whole game. And it's kind of like, it's still a boss fight, but you can't really fail in it. It's almost like Power Rangers. You become massive and you're fighting another massive guy, and just the stuff happening on screen is just absolutely insane. I had like tingles running down me. I was like punching the I absolutely enjoy this game more than pretty much any other game this year, just based on the fact that the skill that it required for me to do and the fact that I did it. The only other game that sort of gave me that satisfaction this year was, I should say it was this year, but the game came out last year, was Lies of P. Platinum, you got talking about that game on the Pro, which I'm yet to check out, but I know there's DLC coming out, I think, early next year for the Little Red Riding Hood is the rumor, Wizard of Oz. So, but no, I went back and platinum that game. So to platinum that game, you have to actually finish that game 3 times. You got to beat that final boss, which is really hard, a couple of times to do that as well. So between that and Black Myth Wukong, my fingers are very sore this year, and I can only imagine Troy's probably wouldn't even survive the maybe the 5th boss of Black Myth Wukong. But no, for me, this is definitely high tier gaming for this year.
Yeah, you've absolutely nailed it, mate. I've put about an hour and a half into it, and it is the finger pain. I simply cannot play this game due to the arthritis. So I sort of need to reserve judgment on this one. I love the way it looks. I love the story it's telling, but the pain, the pain in the fingers from playing, it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, so to speak. Bully, have you given it a crack, mate?
I have not. As it turns out, the physical version is being released today. So it is in the mail. I'll hopefully have it in the next couple of days and be able to jump into it. But
the game of the year then.
Hey, we'll
We'll do a
reconvene next
revote.
week. Yeah, we'll reconvene next week. But it does look good. I mean, from what I've read and from what you've told me about it, Unkie, in the past, is that it really does land in that top tier of Soulsborne type games. So I'm really, really keen to check it out. I'm the same as you, though. For me, it'll be really hard to top Lies of P. I was the same as you. I played it a little bit last year when it came out, but really got into it this year and was going to go and do through another playthrough, but just holding out for that DLC to come before I do it. So hopefully this will fill the void for the intervening period when I do get it in the next couple of days.
Well, it's funny you should say that, actually. It's weird that the parallels I can draw here. With Troy, it was I'd pretty much given up on Returnal up until I saw Troy going through it and beat level 3. I'm like, I can't have this. And then I went back and went back into Returnal, which ended up becoming my game of the year that year because we ended up platinuming it. So, and then you, Bully, it was the same thing. I hadn't never finished. I got stuck on one of the, I think, second last boss of Lies of P. Saw you play it, and I'm like, oh, I can't have Bully finish this game and not me. So I jumped back into it and then platinum that game. So it's like almost identical. And both those games there are probably like close to my games of the year for the year they were released. So
nice work. I'll hand it over to you. I think it only makes sense for the 4th nominee for PS5 exclusive of the year, Bully.
Oh, Final Fantasy Rebirth did come out earlier in the year, and it's you talk about the amount of time that you spent in a game. We shared our PlayStation wrap this afternoon, and this was far and away the most that I've put into a game this year. I think it was just a touch over 100 hours. And that's
wait. Let me just jump in for 1 second. Who wants to guess mine? Most played game.
Vampire Survivor.
Oh, you nailed it. Sorry, keep going.
But it's it's one of those games that you don't, despite it being a sequel, you don't actually have to have played. Like, it helps, but you don't actually have to have played the Final Fantasy remake that came out a couple of years ago. It gives you enough of a backstory when you're starting off to be able to play it. But everything that Final Fantasy remake did well, this just blows it out of the water. There's these massive open world areas, and it's not the whole world is open. It's you get put into this section. That's one open world that you can explore and unlock things and go and find different, side quests and different NPCs to interact with. And then once you get through that and move the story along, there's another whole open world, and it just continues on and on and on through the game. There's even sections that you sort of get halfway. You can get into that open world and you can do some of the stuff, but you have to return to it later on in the story once you've unlocked abilities and all that sort of stuff. For those that are a fan of the original Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation, it's got the Golden Saucer, if you know what that is. That just sucked time and time out of me. Like, there's mini games galore in there. If you want to go through that and get the top score, which helps you, which you end up needing to do if you're going to get the platinum, like the mini games in that were like fantastic. There's Chocobo racing. There's the blood. What was the Bloodstone or something like that? Was the card game that you had in there as well. That was like, I'd just play that and play that and play that for hours and hours and hours, and then go, oh yeah, actually I've got it. Let's go back and do some of the story. Like, for me, it just had everything. Like, if you got tired of doing the main story, there was side quests. If you got tired of doing the side quests, there was mini games to play. If there was, and some of them, mind you, are absolutely brutal. There was a sit-up challenge in one of the areas that to beat that and to beat the last guy on that just takes some unbelievable like rhythm with the controller that you just have to get yourself into this zone. I tried that for hours on end before I managed to do that. It's just literally every little step along the way is amazing. Graphically, it looks fantastic. I know, Unkie, you were talking about it the other day, that it's one of the premium examples of getting a PS5 Pro and what that can do in terms of upping the graphical fidelity while keeping the frame rate high. I haven't jumped back into it yet to do that, but looking forward to it. And it's it's still on my list. I intend to platinum at some point. I've got right to the very end of the story, and then I'll sort of pause because I want to go back and do all those collectibles and the side missions and all that sort of stuff that you need to do to get to 100%, and then do the hard playthrough on top of that. So I think from what I've seen, it's about 150 to 200 hours, depending on what your skill level's like, to be able to platinum. And I intend to fully go back and give it a decent crack at it. For me, it's absolutely one of the best games of the year as far as I'm concerned, and one of the best games in PlayStation's entire existence. This is an absolute masterpiece for mine.
All right. Well, that is the 4 nominees. I'll run them down. If you're in that there YouTube chat, feel free to sing out where your vote's landing. So this year's best PlayStation 5 exclusive, nominee 1, Helldivers 2, nominee 2, Astrobot, nominee 3, Black Myth Wukong, nominee 4, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Let's go bottom to top. Bully, where's your vote sitting, please?
Very tight between Astrobot and Final Fantasy, but I have to go Final Fantasy.
All right. Unkie, where are you sitting?
Well, as much as I loved Black Myth Wukong, I know it's not everyone's thinking, and you don't actually think Black Myth Wukong and you think PlayStation. So if we're going best PlayStation game,
yes.
I'm probably going to stick with Astro just because the game is PlayStation. Just that final level in that game was, just an absolute homage to PlayStation, and that just did it for me. That was one of the best ending levels to any game I reckon I've ever played in terms of the smile on my face. So best PlayStation game, I'm going to have to throw to Astro.
I absolutely second your nomination on that. Astrobot, hands down, gets my nomination. Best PlayStation game ever, I would argue, insofar as paying homage to the 30 years it's been around. Astrobot has 2 votes to 1. Bully, any chance you want to flip it and make it unanimous, or should we leave it as a 2-1 split victory?
As much as you say it's iconic for the PlayStation iconography, I always see Final Fantasy 7 as the iconic PlayStation game. So for me, I'll tip the cap to you boys on Astrobot, more than deserved winner, but I'll have to stick with Final Fantasy.
All right, then. No worries. We will call it Astrobot. A winner is you for PlayStation 5's best exclusive here on Judgment Day. Oh, that was luck.
Hey, that's something.
Oh!
Old Uncle Dunkie. Unkie Dunkie.